I recently got an orphan card and I'm on a mission to make the most of it, so let's go on a visit to Cutty Sark in Greenwich, which is the world's only surviving tea clipper boat. The ship is way past its seafaring days, so it's now housed in a dry dock. The entrance is located in the lower hold, or level 0 on the map. I really love the atmosphere down here. They've obviously had to make changes to make this functional as a museum and also safe for visitors, but they've also incorporated lots of wood, which felt really authentic. I also loved how they displayed information on repurposed crates, as it didn't feel too intrusive. A little further on, there was this projector video, which detailed the creation of Cutty Sark and the types of cargo she carried throughout her working life. As this tour might not be the most exciting for children, I think they've added this little nook with children in mind. And also, there are several interactive elements where you can touch and feel materials that make up the boat. And these interactive question and answers, which I don't think were designed with adults in mind. Especially this one, which you have to be a certain height to be able to read the text. Another thing that I loved about this floor was how you could see the structure of the boat itself. In one of the videos, it was saying how first they built the metal scaffold, and then they attached all the wooden planks to it. So this boat is strong. You can see more details on the actual structure in this little infographic here. As well as this, they had a model which was available to touch, and this projection on the wall, with numbers which corresponded to the diagram below. Once you reach the end of the hold, you have to go up the stairs and go to the tween deck. This was a big wide open space, which along with the lower hold below, would have been used to hold all the cargo. I decided to start at the front of the ship at the stern, and it was just an area full of a little video playing, and also just a few barrels and this ladder which went up but was not accessible. Some of the portholes were open on the day of my visit, so I took the opportunity, taking some of these unique views. Back to the main room of this deck, on which there were quite a few children on the day that I visited, and I think this is because this is probably the most interesting room for them. Here are some examples. There was this cross-view model where you had to balance the weight of the cargo, and there was this interactive game where you had to follow the trade winds by steering the ship's wheel. I was not successful and I did get shipwrecked, but I think it will be pretty fun for children. I noticed this hole in the roof which went down to the level below, and this is where cargo would have been loaded in via cranes. A little bit further down, there were interactive screens where you could view ports of call made by the ship over its lifetime. Another screen displayed more information on the crew itself. You could also search by family name and find out how much they were paid, what their rank was, and how long they served for. Next to these screens were pull-out drawers, which show stuff like the ship's log. The ones I found the most interesting, though, were these ones which showed meals which were typically eaten by sailors. At the end of the room, there's a section dedicated to the fate of Cutty Sark and how it came to be in this dry dock. It described how it stopped being a tea clipper because it was essentially too slow in comparison to the newer steamships. It also explains why Cutty Sark was not destroyed like all the other tea clippers of its time. Now the majority of the museum part is over, it's time to go to the main deck. I got super lucky on the day of my visit, and it was such a joy to be out on the deck, underneath this beautiful sunshine. There was a lot of rope and apparatus on this deck, and me not being a boat person at all, I don't know how much of it was original or how much has been added, or how it was a replica, but I'd like to think the majority of it was left over from its seafaring days. Apart from the modern lights, glass screens, and a few placards here and there, it certainly felt very authentic. It felt like I was on an actual ship that could have set sail at any moment. In light of this feeling like a very real ship, I want to add that there were some quite steep steps, so this could pose a problem for people with limited accessibility. The crew would have lived and spent most of the time on this deck. Here you can see where they would have slept and kept all their belongings. I appreciated the level of detail here, which made it look really lived in, but obviously it hasn't been lived in for quite a long time. Adjacent to this room was the carpenter's workshop and the galley where all the food would have been prepared. At the time of my visit, there was restoration work going on, which of course is essential, but it was pretty loud. If you're curious to hear what it's like, here's the unmuted version. At one point, I think they got some drills out, which further added to the noise. But it didn't really bother me. If anything, I'm just glad that they're preserving this ship for years to come. At the front of the ship, which I think is called the bow, you get to see the ship's wheel, and you also get an alternative view of the mighty mast, and just revel at how tall it is. From here, you can also go down these steps, which leads to the master's cabin. Apparently at one point, one of the masters added a four-poster bed, which I'm really confused how they managed to fit down there. Attached to this was an area where the crew would have spent their time eating, drinking and socializing. as well as an area where the captain would have been able to plot out routes on a map and look at charts if he needed to. Leading off from here was a series of rooms, starting off with the kitchen, which is where the steward would have prepared meals after they had been cooked in the galley. I think the meals were only prepared in this way if they were going to be served to the captain, or if they were entertaining any guests. Next up were the living quarters for the first and second mate, who were respectively second and third in command of the ship. Again, I was really impressed with the level of detail here, because I think they tried to source belongings from original crew members of Cutty Sark, or at least tried to source objects from that time period, rather than just display replicas. And that was the final part of Cutty Sark left to explore. Once you go up these steps, you find yourself back on the deck, and you follow the signs to the exit. The exit is via the dry dock level, so you have to go down all these steps first. And once you do have the opportunity to explore the base of the ship. I found this quite fascinating, as it's quite rare you get to see a ship of this size, and from this angle. Right at the end of this room, there's a collection of what I thought were really scary looking dolls from a distance, but actually once I got up close, I realised they were mastheads. These were not just from Cutty Sark, but from various decommissioned ships around the world. This leads me on to a point I want to make about this museum. Although it's of course focused on Cutty Sark itself, I thought it was a great introduction to sea trading and maritime history. So if you're curious or just want a casual museum trip, this is definitely one to visit.